The key objectives for today's session essentially are four. The first one is to describe the role of the ICT industry in achieving the top 20 GDP competitiveness and human development. So we have a mandate here to think out strategies, vision of how to drive Nigeria's GDP to be in the top 20 by the year 2050 using ICT. We, as I go along in the presentation, will see how we've improved in terms of ICT's contribution to the national GDP over the last couple of years, and especially from the inception of democracy. And we believe that if properly harnessed, we can actually get ICT contribute more to Nigeria's GDP and make Nigeria one of the top 20 economies by the year 2050. In 2018, it was the third highest contribution. ICT was the third highest contributor to national GDP. What are we trying to say here? The potentials are enormous. And we're stakeholders in this room. We do business in this industry. And we've brought this group together to begin to think of a 30-year vision. What do we want the ICT industry to contribute to national GDP by the year 2050?
From the software and infrastructure side, we identified quite a few issues. Particularly from the infrastructure side, multiple taxations is one of the issues we identified, particularly for people who want to build cables and the likes. Getting right of way. And sometimes you start from federal government to state government, everybody trying to extract their own pound of flesh. But of course, this also speaks to the ease or transparency of doing business. And then so again, for software, we realize that there are two ways to go. Software, does Nigeria want to pursue the path of being a body shop, just exporting skills to other countries, or do we want to own intellectual property? We think software is about owning intellectual property. If you really want to play, if you want to be at the table, the country needs to have strategies to own its own intellectual property. And so, in going to do that, we understand that it's compulsory that we need to create companies that have a global vision, even though they want to play locally. Because why do we say this? We couldn't identify any global company that didn't start as a local company. And so we realized that a company that's going to become global needs to start local. And that means that there is a need, critical need, for market access. And what we mean by market access is guaranteeing that the kind of projects that are done within Nigeria are given to Nigerians to do.
We looked at guarantees, waivers, concessions. You talked about tax breaks and also import substitution. Then in terms of infrastructure, we just narrowed it down to one, which is right of way at zero costs. So like the Kwara State governor said yesterday, it's zero cost in the Kwara States. And so you can imagine, yes, right of way. So he's saying anybody can come in, MTN, come in and lay your fiber. And in the next 2 years, I believe that that economy will be central to a lot of things that is technology. You might be thinking, how will it work? If NASBA has been successful, I see no reason why the IT one will not be successful. So we just need champions, people that are ready to give their time. We will get funding for it, for the sustainable. I mean, the funding is always the first thing that comes to mind of anybody that is doing anything. But once we start this initiative, we believe that the funding will come in.
Essentially, we try to frame all of our conversations around 6 topics. What are the priority areas that need funding? What are the possible sources for funding? And then what's required to tap into those funding sources? And then essentially an implementation plan. So that's sort of the framing. And then we threw out some ideas. Okay, is it going to be debt? Is it going to be equity? Are we going to to capital markets? Are we going to countries like China, give us money? Are we creating e-government bonds and things like that? Is it public sector driven, private sector driven, domestic money, international money, and things like that? Then we talked about this idea that everything should just be private sector driven. So private sector driven our way of investment. Exactly. Exactly. So, and then the last one is reforming the IP, intellectual property, trademarks, patents, sort of reforming that process so that the ability to register this IP here, right? What happens today is that any company that's taking financing from outside Nigeria, the company has to now go and register in Mauritius or in Delaware, right? So your IP is not even here, you know. So how do we reform that part so all of that can reside here? So that's really, and then we talk about DFIs, impact investing, and technical assistance.
Right. So somebody said something interesting, that why are we even talking about digital literacy? Why are we using the word digital? The truth is, if you think about literacy and the future, digital is implied. There's no literacy without digital. So if we think about it that way, digital literacy is really talking about literacy of this nation. If we're looking at 37.5% being digitally literate by 2050, it's really going to be, has to be woven into the fabric of how we educate ourselves. Now we came up, we started off looking at the challenges that, okay, so why haven't we been able to do that? Why can't we do that? But midway, we decided that, you know what, let's just focus on the future. What should we do? And so we came up with a lot of ideas. The first thing we said is we need segmentation of the population. When we talk about digital literacy or literacy of any kind, there are different levels. So someone joked, you know, that, well, maybe for some people, they really don't need more than being able to use their phones. For some people, they're going to use robotics, artificial intelligence to do things. So there are different needs and there are different sectors. We need to look at our population and segment it. We have the rural, we have the formal education, we have adult education. So we have people who are already literate. They've already gone through school, but they know nothing about digital technologies. That's a separate segment. So anyway, without wasting too much time, the point is we don't have a point person. If we're looking at a national strategy for digital literacy, we do not have a point person. So that's the thing. People have mentioned the roundtable. We said collaboration, but you see, collaboration needs accountability. There has to be somebody leading it. And so we have said we're happy we're here with NESG, so we're giving this back to you to help us find the point person. When we have a point person, we're very willing to work on all of these things.